Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. So we are in month, 11 of the pandemic, and sometimes you just need a good cry. So I'm here to recommend you some books that will just make you sob your face off. So I'm not what you would call an overly emotional reader, so this list is somewhat short, but these are the books that over the past 10 years have caught me by surprise. I thought I was gonna be stronger, and just ended up leaving me crumpled, just sobbing, ugly crying, hope that nobody comes home in the next couple hours so I can recover from books. So let's start off a book that is at the top of the list whenever somebody is like, hey, I just really want to feel all of the horrible emotions in life. I'm like, I got you. This is the book. And that is Lily and the Octopus by Stephen Rowley. So I feel like everybody gets emotional over different things, but I think it's fairly universal. When a dog dies, it's not okay. And this entire book is about that. I don't know what I was thinking going into this. I'm glad that I read this book looking back, but at the time, and honestly, even looking back on it, I don't know what I was thinking. This book is the most painful book I have ever read in my life. So, I'm clearly an animal lover. I have a dog, I have many pets, I've had many pets over the years, and this book is basically following the death of a dog. And this is not a spoiler. You know what you're getting into when you sign up for this book, and from chapter 1, I was like, oh no, this is a bad idea, and yet I kept reading it. So this follows an owner who has a small dachshund named Lily, and it's beautifully written. The octopus that's in the title is basically cancer that is attached to Lily, and it's very beautiful symbolism of how the octopus is a living presence essentially in their life, but it's the cancer that is slowly deteriorating this dog. And we all know where it's going, and you just kind of hope that it's going to be skated over. It's not. So if you've ever wanted to know what it's like to experiencing losing your pet in on-page scenes of going to the vet, calling for the euthanasia call, I'm getting emotional thinking about it. This book is for you. Why would you want to read that? I don't know, but sometimes you just need to purge the emotions, and this one will make you purge from chapter 1 until the end. I don't think I've ever cried harder than I did during this book. So if you're still watching this video, why? But hey, I'm here to provide emotional solace to you, but don't worry, it gets worse. We all knew this book was going to show up in this video, right? This is A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara, and if you've read this, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't, look at his face on the cover. This is what you're going to look like for a majority of this book. This is pretty much what is I consider a modern classic at this point. This is a book that has been on so many thousands and thousands of people's shelves. It's a beautiful character study of the human trauma. It follows Jude, who's our protagonist, but it also follows his friend group through pretty much their whole lives. And if anything horrible can happen to a person, it happens to Jude. It's one of those things where you're just is this too much? Nope, we're still going. Oh, more bad things are happening to this poor man. And it's hard to read. It's also one of the most beautiful glimpses into the human psyche and how we deal with horrible things and how the people around us are affected with that. And it left me crying on the bathroom floor for 2 hours. So there you go. There's a recommendation if you would like to be brutally traumatized by a book. Pick up this chunky book and endure that. Good luck. The next book is a nonfiction book that I thought that I was going to be strong enough to handle, and I did really well for a majority of it because you kind of know where the story's going, similar to Lily and the Octopus. You know from page 1 what this is going to be, and that is When Breath Becomes Air by Paul Kalanithi. This is a nonfiction memoir style type book of a doctor who is diagnosed with cancer. So you're kind of getting the inside experience of what it's like for a person who works in the medical field and has a full grasp of what is happening to him and what is going to happen to him, having to embrace that and deal with it and think that he's strong enough, but realizing that he's really not when he's on the other side of the patient-doctor dynamic. And it was fascinating to see because I feel there's a lot of cancer stories. And this was honestly really fascinating to me because you actually get to see a very real glimpse into what dealing with cancer is like when you have a full grasp of what's happening to you. Because on the other side of that, just being a patient, not in the medical field, you're just going off of what the doctors are telling you, and it's frustrating because I feel like you don't know a lot of what's happening or what could happen. This is on the other end of that spectrum where he's fully aware of what is happening to him and what his symptoms are going to be like, what his rate of survival is going to be like, and it's pretty raw. And I thought that I was doing great with this. I was listening to it and I was like, oh, this is really tough. I'm probably going to shed a couple tears. But it also focuses on what it's like being married to that. I basically broke when it switched perspectives to his wife was writing the rest of his memoir because he couldn't anymore, and what it's like being the spouse of a medical person, of a doctor, but also losing that person who generally is the person who heals everyone to a disease, and how harrowing that is. And I thought that I was going to be fine with this. I listened to this book while I was driving. Recommendation number 1, don't do that. That's dangerous. I vividly remember having to pull over on the side of the road and just like heave and like sob at the end of this book. So learn from me, don't drive while listening to this book. Just read it at home when you're alone and can just feel all of the things and then be safe and move on with your life. So there's a nonfiction recommendation for you. It's a doozy. All right, the next book is falling in the romance genre, and I think the next one after that is as well. But this is a book that I went in not knowing, being very ill prepared for the type of story I was getting into. The very first Corinne Michaels book I ever read was Say You'll Stay. And this, I went in thinking it was just going to be a cute small town contemporary romance. I was wrong. So this opens into a scene of spoilers for the opening scene of this. If you don't want to know what the kind of starting scene of this book is, wait until I put the book down and then you can come back and listen to me talk about it. This opens on a scene of a woman who comes home and finds that her husband has committed suicide. And it is on page, real emotions of exactly what you would have to do in that situation. It's not like a flashback. It doesn't skim over the reality of what that's like. You actually are with her on page when she makes the phone call, when she has to get her children out of the house and over to the neighbors and trying to not break down in front of her kids to let them know what she just found in the upstairs bathroom. And that entire opening scene is really rough. And I didn't expect to, one, become so attached to these characters within one chapter to the point where I had to stop reading this book and put it down and just kind of cry for a while and then recoup and come back. And then the book takes place years later when she has moved to a small town and is kind of like piecing her life back together. Hopefully that was not spoilery for the people who wanted to mute that little section of the video. But trigger warnings for suicide. There you go. It's rough, and I have never felt emotions that quickly in a story. So this book, while it was the hardest book that I've read in a long time, it gave me the utmost respect for Corinne Michaels as an author, because not only can she introduce you to these random strangers that you don't know anything about, but make you feel all of the things with them on page within like 2 chapters to the point where you were just sobbing openly while you're reading it. So she's a fantastic writer, and the rest of the book is not that heavy, but you get thrown right in to the rough part of the book, and then you get to recover with the romance afterwards. Okay, and the last book is also another romance book, but I feel like it's a lot more than just the romance that's in the story, and that is The Last Letter by Rebecca Yarros. You can already see what direction this book is going. So this book is following Ella and Beckett, who are the 2 love interests of the story. And Ella is a single mom who is raising twins, and trigger warning for this book, childhood cancer is a big part of this plot. But the story is basically following her brother, who is deployed with Beckett, who is our love interest of this book, and her brother dies in combat, and the last letter that he gives to his friend Beckett, who served with him, was to go and take care of his sister and her twins. And it is their relationship, as she is not really willing to accept the help from her brother's friend, and their relationship comes from that. This book is kind of like tragedy after tragedy, so if you're not the type of person who really likes just like an unrealistic amount of misery, avoid this one and avoid A Little Life, because I feel like both of those are just like one thing after another, but when you're reading it, it doesn't seem unrealistic, but big content warnings for this with childhood cancer, but it's following their relationship and her dealing with one of her twins being diagnosed with cancer, and Beckett trying to just help her with everything. But Beckett was also in the military and has been released and is taking care of her at this point, but he also lost his best friend in the military, and he's dealing with PTSD from his experiences there, and he has his service dog with him, which is awesome. The dog is like the best part of the story, and it's just a lot of bad shit that happens to these two and how they bond together through the grief and through getting through everything together. And this is a book that you kind of know the direction it's going, and then it takes a different turn, and you are not prepared for the emotions that you will feel in this, because I actually did really well without crying at this book. Like, I teared up at scenes, a lot of scenes I was just like, oh god, this is hard, but I got through them, and then you hit like another plot twist, and it just slaps you across the face, and you are not prepared for the tears that are streaming down your cheeks when you're reading this book. This one, I thought I was going to be stronger with, and I was not. Read this one when you're home alone as well. So, those are 5 books that I want to recommend to you guys if you just need to have a really good cry, because sometimes you just really need that, and that is like a variety of different types of stories and different types of things depending on what you might get emotional over. If you don't cry at Lily and the Octopus, I don't want to be friends with you, because something's wrong with you though. Just saying. So if you have any recommendations for me of similar books that just made you lose your mind with emotions, leave it down in the comments, but follow it up with a happy story. What's one that you can recover with? Because I'm probably gonna need a good hug after a lot of these books. Read The House in the Cerulean Sea after reading any of these books. That book is a warm hug, okay? That's what I'm gonna leave you with. That'll be your recovery book, okay? House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune. Have that on standby for when you finish any of these. Cool? Okay. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I'll see you guys in my next video.